So next we're going to move into our tech chat part of the program, where we're going to go through a series of tech chats with 5 entrepreneurs who are highlighting some of the innovations that are coming here from Hong Kong. We have entrepreneurs who in the cleantech space, in robotics, in e-commerce, in biomedical and other areas coming on stage next. We also are going to position them against a couple of expert commentators who are going to give some feedback to these entrepreneurs after they present their case with the moderators. So the first tech chat, these are all Hong Kong-based entrepreneurs, by the way. So this, in a way, shows what Hong Kong is capable of doing, right? So I'd like to welcome to the stage Elsa Chan, who is the co-founder of Jetlun. And this is in the representing the clean tech area. And she's going to be interviewed by Iain Reid, who is the president of TieHK Hong Kong. I'd also like to welcome to the stage our commentators. Our commentators are, these are all experts in tech and finance. First, Edith Yeung from Right Ventures, here from Silicon Valley. Yatsu, here from all the way from Hong Kong, and Cyberport, Outblaze. And also Allison Baum, who is the managing director of Fresco Capital Advisors. And is Hanson. Hanson Cheah, would you like to come up and be our, even out the number of commentators? So commentators all, yeah, okay. Why don't you, Elsa, why don't you, Allison, why don't you sit on this side here? I'll go here. Okay. Is everybody all mic'd up? We're all good. Okay, good. Iain and Elsa, take it away.
Elsa, thank you very much for being here. Let's start off with a little bit of your background. So you're a Hong Kong girl, moved to North America when you were about 6, and then ended up in Silicon Valley. So somehow there was some entrepreneurial genes there. So tell us a little bit about your childhood in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so actually entrepreneur genes, I guess, is from my father, who's been in the computing industry for over 40 years, making all the PET 64 from Commodore. So I kind of grew up with technology, and right after I graduated from college at 21, he decided to start a company with me in Silicon Valley and looking at technology. So I was on my way, because I grew up in Silicon Valley in Cupertino. All my friends, you know, their parents worked for HP, Intel, Apple. And we're living the Silicon Valley dream of startups and TK noodles. For those of you who don't know TK noodles, it's like a popular TK noodle place for starving entrepreneurs that can get a bowl of noodles for like $3 US. So that's how we started.
Excellent, thank you. So you started a company straight out of college. And made a success of it. So talk us through a little bit about your first venture and how successful it was.
I started the company named Ahsoka when I was 21, and we bootstrapped the company over 6 years and grew the company from basically nothing to about $7 million in annual revenue. And eventually we had enough POs from leading service providers and other companies that drove us, our customers were basically saying, you know, you need to go find funding. You can't keep bootstrapping. And so we raised a Series A round with Tier 1 VCs for $7 million.
So you founded a company with your father. Tell me how that was, having your father as a co-founder.
It was stressful at times. There was a lot of cultural differences because he mainly worked in Asia and I grew up in America. But over the years, we've learned to work together, admire each other's strength. We still have our arguments, but I don't think I could do it any other way because I have, you know, with building a startup, it's a constant roller coaster. So I have somebody that's, supporting me, and I can fully trust in building my business.
Thank you. So, okay, so you raised some money at Series A, and at that point, you also exited the business, I understand. So, just any takeaways from that particular process?
I learned a lot, raising money and, transitioning to kind of a senior hired team from the venture capitalists, and learned that I was an enabler. I wanted to solve things and be, taking a problem and finding a solution. And once I find a solution and market it, I want that cycle viciously. So that's why we started a new company, because we wanted to look at a new problem. And so we started a new company in 2008, late 2008, trying to decide what we want to do. Learned tremendously with dealing with, how to handle, venture capitalist investors, how to hold board meetings. That was interesting. And when I started the second company, I decided that we will continue to bootstrap again and not look for outside investor. So today we're still bootstrapping.
That's an interesting lesson for the VCs. So this time you decided to come to Hong Kong, which it's great that you decided to come home because you were a Hong Kong girl originally. Tell us a little bit about how it was getting going, because you're an enterprise business, and starting an enterprise business is never easy as a startup because you're dealing with lots of large companies. But talk us a little bit through how you got it going and what the strategy was to get the first deal.
Well, first, our company is Jetlun, and we are an energy management company and a smart grid company. So we've been working with utilities all over the world in home energy management as well as building energy management. And so at the beginning, I was knocking the doors of the major meter manufacturers around the world. There's Itron, GE, Linus & Gear, and others. And they were huge. And, nobody really wanted to talk to me, pretty much. It was a new industry that I was into. And so when I first talked to these meter companies and I said, I want to interoperate and make sure my product worked with theirs, they forced me to buy a lot of development kits. So, but, fast forward 5 years later, I pick up the phone and I say, I need more products for interoperability. They basically ship me products. I think it takes time and it takes persistence, a lot of doors slamming in my face, a lot of unreturned phone calls, unreturned emails. And you just have to be very, very thick-skinned and continue to establish your credibility by delivering. And delivering what you said, delivering what you commit to, and then pretty soon people start calling you back and responding to your emails.
Yes, I've been through the same myself. So it's never easy selling as a startup, selling to large companies. So more recently, we've seen a sort of change in the marketplace. I understand in what you're doing. So just talk us through how you've had to. It's not a complete pivot, but certainly you've had to change the way or change your target customers. Tell us a little bit about that. Utilities and smart grid in general is
still rolling out worldwide, but utilities haven't really gone into the home as originally, like back in 2009, where utilities wanted to connect to devices in the home. Over time, utilities really changed. There's been a paradigm shift in terms of what they were looking for and what their strategies were. And so we had to adapt, So even though we had, after 5 years, revenues, customers, contracts, we continue to look for new strategies, new areas where we can enter. And so, repositioning ourselves, repositioning our product, our solution to the marketplace, and expanding, our target customers from purely utility-centric to more commercial customers like, hospitals or office commercial property managers as such that can use the same platform that we built primarily originally for utilities.
We got a chance for one more question. So tell us a little bit about the future. Are you going to raise some money, or it doesn't sound like? But tell me what the plans are for the future.
You know, plans for the future is M&A, looking at M&A opportunities. And, you know, we're open to all types of opportunities, but mostly, you know, mergers and acquisitions.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's good.
Any comments from our gang of experts here? We invited you up for your loud voices.
It's the entrepreneur you're commenting on, not the moderator, by the way.
Actually, sorry, I didn't have the background for the company. But are you providing a service, or is it the software that is going?
We're a full service, vertically integrated energy management system of hardware and software. So we provide a platform for energy management.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I hear the previous story of what you've done, whereby you basically raised money from VCs. They came in and decided to bring in professional management, replaced the founders, probably including your father as well.
Yes.
I imagine, right? And then now you start a company. You haven't raised money from any one of them, and you probably, I don't know. I mean, if this was Silicon Valley, this would be a different story, whereby they would probably be can open the doors for you to talk to the General Electrics, the Honeywells of the world for that, right? So you kind of forewent that area, right? As opposed to going through the VC route all over again. Am I reading correctly?
Yeah,
but
no.
So basically what he's saying is that why do you hate the VC so much?
I don't. Absolutely don't.
I didn't say that, actually.
Yeah, I don't. Actually, no, I mean, from my first business, I already had some contacts. And, you know, the industry, some of the utilities already knew who I was and my expertise in some of the technologies. Also, from my experience is VCs are great at pointing to people at pretty high levels, yet it doesn't, you know, it can open the door, but you still have to do the work. You know, you still have to present and position your company. And so for me, it was no different. I mean, I had VCs that introduced me and opened doors as well. And I know other VCs, attorneys in Silicon Valley that continue to make introductions to other startups that would work with us and et cetera. So just because we're not funded with VCs doesn't mean that I'm not working with the VC community.
Yeah, so thank you for your story. I guess first I think it's pretty cool that you're working with your dad. It's for parents, that's kind of, I have young children, so I don't know whether that's going to happen. But living here in Asia, a lot of parents would love for their children to work together with them. I think that's great, especially for an entrepreneurial story. Maybe my only comment I would make, I don't know if this is a pitch or whichever, is it's not clear to me what your vision for the business is and your passion for the business. And if we're talking about M&A, from my standpoint anyway, how you see the future in terms of where the product will be, where it will be built, how it will, I don't know, light up the world, is where I think the big M&A might come from. Yeah.
I didn't think it was a pitch. I thought
No,
it was a Q&A.
I didn't say it was. I was just commenting.
She wouldn't take your money anyway.
I know.
That's not true.
There we go. Okay, our VCs are going to have a tough task up here. I can see that later on. Any further comments just to wrap this one up?
Yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciate what you said about, you know, having unreturned phone calls and unreturned emails, but all you really have is your word. And so delivering on what you committed to and delivering on what you said you would do, I think, especially for first-time entrepreneurs that don't have a track record they can point to, people forget that all you have to do is do what you said you would, and that goes a long way. So
once other than my smart ass comment, you know, when you're telling your story, there's one book that I'm actually reading now. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And when I listen to your story, I'm thinking to myself, that's really, really hard what you're what you're focusing on. And I think that we like for Dolphin Browser, we also Sequoia back. But at the same time, I think, you know, as an entrepreneur, I completely agree with you. If I don't have to give away any equity, I won't. But at the same time, I think sometimes there's a fine line between, you know, if you do have a little bit more money, you really need to actually learn how to spend money, and could potentially go a lot faster. So it's all choices. Yeah,
it's choices, and it's a balance, and how you deal with that balance. We chose not to have investment early on, primarily because we knew utilities was going to be a long haul. And most of our partners, even our customers, one of our classic customer raised over $100 million, and they buy products from us. And last year, they basically they weren't able to meet their targets, and not only meet their targets, but because the market changed. And so it went from, I don't know, like over 150 employees down to about 3. And, you know, we knew that the market was going to be slow, and so we wanted to take our time and, you know, really be capital efficient before raising a bunch of money and say we're going to do all these crazy predictions and not being able to meet it. I think at the end of the day, you know, we felt it was the right thing to do, given that the market was going to be slow in the utility space. But for sure, you know, you got venture money that definitely helps. So if you look at my market, is, you know, Nest just got acquired by Google for $1.3 billion, right? So without funding for marketing, and certainly being the founder and creator of the iPod helps. But, you know, that just dependent on what your business model is. If your business model is going to be very cash intensive, like the Nest, which they spent a lot of marketing dollars for advertisement, buying end caps, etc., then you need a lot of cash. When we looked at our market and our strategy, and we said, okay, we have a limited number of meter manufacturers that we need to partner up with. We have a limited number of, you know, utilities in different countries. You know, the marketing budget we looked at didn't require as much as some other company that needed to go directly to consumers. So it's, you know, you got to look at your business strategy, you know, your channel to market, and then figure out what your cash and financial plans are to support what you want to do.
Okay, well, good. Let's give Elsa and Iain a round of applause, and also wish her good luck on that M&A trail, right? So I'd like to also present Elsa as a sign of encouragement. You can have your choice, either a Silicon Dragon t-shirt or a Silicon Dragon bag. And this is a sign of encouragement for all those Silicon Dragon entrepreneurs that made it in my first book, who became really famous and NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange listed. So your choice.
Can I take the bag?
You take the bag, okay.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Let's give Elsa and Iain a round of applause, and welcome our next Tech Chat series to the stage. We're in for a real treat, really switching gears here. We're going to be moving to e-commerce. And representing the e-commerce and fashion segment is Ilissa Howard, co-founder of Milk and Honey Shoes. And she's going to be interviewed by Napolean Biggs, who is no stranger here to Hong Kong with his Web Wednesday series, and he's also an entrepreneur himself. So take it away, Napolean and Ilissa.
This is absolutely terrifying. I'm sitting next to Allison, Hanson, all the old school of the internet here. So, we're going to talk about shoes. How many people in this room have bought their shoes online? Go on, stick your hands up. Oh, there you go. We want to hear this from a milk and honey perspective. Until this event happened, I didn't know what milk and honey was, apart from a nice description. So can you tell us a little bit about milk and honey? What is milk and honey?
Milk and honey is changing the way that women shop and create products. Basically, we're an online platform that allows women to create their own products, fashion products online, and our first vertical is focused on shoes. So you can design your own shoes online.
So you started the business here or in the States? Where did you start the business?
We actually tried to start the business in the U.S. We tried to start the business in the U.S., but it was a really hard thing to do, given the nature of our business. Finding a good supplier is a really hard thing to do for anyone, and especially when you're doing custom products in China, it's an especially hard thing to do. So I actually moved over here to get the suppliers worked out while my partner stayed in the US. So she worked on all of the marketing and PR and set up for the business over there while I focused on the operations and supply chain over here.
So I'm going to pick up on what Yat said. We don't want to just talk about money, right? We want to talk about passion. So have you always been passionate about shoes? Or is this something that you and your partner's your sister, correct?
Right.
So were you sitting there and you said what the world needs is a way to design your own shoe? Well, where did it all originate? Were you drunk one night or some other enhanced?
Probably, but that's not where the idea came from. I think most women love shoes, and buying shoes online is a growing trend. I think maybe not as much in Asia as it is in the US, but...
Your shoes are now on screen behind you, did you realize? Twice.
Oh,
Can you do that
okay.
again, please, camera?
And did you design those shoes?
I did.
Yes. They're great. Can everybody see them?
Camera. Excellent. So going back to where you started, there you go.
Okay.
They're on screen, they're famous.
My feet are not my forte. So basically, like I said, I think all women really do love shoes. And being on the taller side, I don't really like wearing heels above 3 inches. So I always had a hard time finding shoes. And you would think 3 inches is reasonable, but apparently not these days. And I like fun colors. I like basic colors like nude. I like silver. And believe it or not, you can go to Saks Fifth Avenue, New York City, and not be able to find a fun pair of shoes that you like, the right heel height, or the right color. It sounds ridiculous, but trust me, it's true, and if you're women, you know that's true. I actually started traveling over to Asia for work 10 years ago. And you can create your own shoes over here. Not necessarily the type of shoes that would sell very well all over the world, but you can create your own shoes. And as soon as I discovered that, I was really excited.
Where can you create your own shoes?
In Hong Kong. In Hong Kong you can. Okay. So I started doing that. And I'd go home and everybody loved them and wanted them, and so that got us thinking that maybe this is something that we should offer the rest of the world, and that's when I started looking for suppliers in China who could do shoes up to the standard that we would need in order to sell to the West at a reasonable price.
So did you go to Shenzhen? Were your shoes created in Shenzhen?
Dongguan.
Dongguan. So you started it out of the States, then you moved over here, and it's a web-based business, correct? Do you have any physical stores?
No, not yet.
Not yet. But you will.
We're considering some shop within the shops, yeah.
So tell us, when you build a website, you're now on the global perspective. You could build it in Shenzhen, you could build it in India, you could build it in Eastern Europe. Where did you decide to put the whole thing together?
Yeah, finding the right development team was really challenging for us. We bootstrapped our business at the beginning. So our first site was developed in Pakistan, and then we moved to India. And then we tried a developer in France, and then the US. And I hear you all laughing. I think some of you are familiar with the story. And we ended up in the Ukraine, which actually has been amazing for us. They're great developers. Their command of the English language is good. The cost is reasonable. And that's really been perfect for us.
So you're selling via the internet all over the world.
Right.
How many shoes have you sold?
Thousands. We don't give that exact number, but thousands, yes.
And is there a particular market where people are buying it more than others? Is it the Chinese, like the rest of the world? Or?
No. We focus our marketing efforts on the U.S. right now. We will expand that. The reason we do is just that's the market we know the best, and in terms of focusing, that made sense for us. So that is our biggest market. After that is the U.K., Australia, Canada, Europe in general. But we've shipped to over 25 countries, so we'll ship anywhere.
But when you talk to people who want to invest in your business, they always say, is it scalable? Surely customizable shoes is the least scalable of all kind of products out there that you can sell on the internet.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that, as you can imagine. But actually, it is very scalable because shoes are actually made by hand, as many products in China are. But shoes specifically are, it's a very manual process. So yeah, there are some efficiencies that we don't get when you're doing custom shoes, but while you really can design your own shoes in terms of you can change the styles and the heel height and the colors and embellishments, there are also standard styles that you kind of mix up. So basically they're like puzzle pieces. And you can batch different bits of those puzzle pieces together to get efficiencies. So it's actually a lot more scalable and a lot more like mass manufacturing shoes than you would think.
So do you think you and Zach should team up and 3D print shoes? Is that the future of the shoe?
You know,
the future
people
of milk
talk
and
about
honey?
that a lot. People talk about that a lot. I don't know
He
how I'd
needs some
walk.
nice shoes.
I just don't know how I'd walk in plastic shoes. Can you walk in plastic shoes?
Doesn't have to be plastic. It
Crocs.
can be human flesh, apparently.
Oh.
And lots of other things.
How about that?
So tell us about, a lot of people in the brand world, in the fashion world, go into the celebrity space in order to get, people buying a product. Because most people are quite lazy to design their own stuff, right? So have you gone out there and reached out to celebrities and used them to create brands? I mean, do you see yourself creating brands?
We have. Well, first of all, yes. Milk and Honey is definitely a brand. People know us, and if you go to our site or you see any of our packaging or our shoes, it's distinct in the sense that you know it comes from us.
I found you on Weibo, actually. There's a Milk and Honey on Weibo. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
There's a brand. All right, carry on.
Good to know. Yeah, partnerships are actually really important to us, and we do have a celebrity program. We've had celebrities like Molly Sims, Kate Mara, Jennifer Goodwin, Whitney Cummings, a whole bunch design shoes for, and then we sell them on our site. And generally, a percentage of the proceeds will go to charity or whatever the celebrity wants. And actually, it's really great for bringing traffic to our site, but people actually do like designing their own shoes, and sometimes from scratch, but also we have a way of working on our site where you can click on any shoe and edit the design. So you can actually see they may be inspired by the celebrity design, or we've done partnerships with bloggers such as Go Fug Yourself and 100 Layer Cake, which is a really popular bridal blog, and Spoonflower, which is actually custom fabric. So people design their own shoes, and we voted, and now we have that on our site. So anyway, people will come for all of those different reasons to our site, but they often end up customizing a bit.
So you're doing at the moment female shoes and male shoes. What would be
Only women.
Only women.
Yeah.
So what would be you hinted earlier there's an extension. What would you extend into?
Well, the obvious extension would be bags. And then lots of different fashion categories, any types of accessories and clothing. It's something we'll consider down the line. In fact, initially, we thought we would get there sooner. We wouldn't focus on just shoes for this long, but there's a lot to do in the shoe category, so it made sense for us to continue to focus.
But you're in the e-commerce business, so what is the trick to e-commerce? Is it the front end of it, or is it really the logistics? I mean, you're supplying all over the world, so how are you dealing with the logistics side of it?
Yeah, I mean, all of it is a challenge, really, right? In terms of logistics, we make our shoes in China and we ship from China. We actually ship DHL because the manufacturing process is longer, and we don't want our customers to have to wait too long, and that works out really well. We buy all of our own materials. We've created all of our own lasts and heels, and we import our own leather. We actually manage everything ourselves so that it's under our control, and we know it's to the quality that we want it to be. Does that answer your question?
We've run out of time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you're going to get grilled.
Comments, please. Edith or Allison?
Yeah.
Allison?
So we recently had the pleasure of visiting Zappos headquarters in Las Vegas, and one of my favorite books is Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, where he talks about the real secret to his business is customer service. Yeah. So people said the same thing to him, why do you care so much about shoes? And he said, it's not about shoes, it's about customer service. So clearly that's something that's really important for your business. So what is your customer service strategy, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, customer service is extremely important, especially in the US. I've learned since living over here, we have really high expectations of customer service. So that was one of our first hires, was a customer service rep. We take returns on custom shoes. We rush things as much as possible when people need it to. If it's not the right color, even if it's exactly what they ordered, we'll remake it for them. We try and respond to people as quickly as possible, definitely within 24 hours. We have live chat on our site. You can call us, email us, whatever you want. For us, it's actually about the shoes, but customer service is definitely a key element to our business.
Do you end up losing money on, I mean, if people are returning custom shoes?
No, because knowing they can do it actually means more than actually wanting to do it. So we don't have a very high return rate, and what we do get returns on, we just sell in sample sales.
I have a couple questions just to clarify, understand. Sure. If I design this pair of shoes, so I can only buy it, or somebody else? If you really like mine, can I buy it? Can you buy my design too?
We do feature some customer designs on our site, and people can buy them. Or we have an inspiration gallery, and you can recreate that design and buy it. Okay. Sure.
So what's the average price point?
They're between $200 and $300 US.
Okay.
Actually, they go down to as low as actually 140 now, but average is between 200 and 300.
So how often is a customer a repeat customer that buy
26% of our sales are repeat customers.
Okay.
Is there a volume discount model? You know?
No,
well,
there
you know,
isn't.
I wouldn't be the likely customer, but if someone makes a design and then says, hey, if we can order 1,000 of these, it would be this price.
Yes, absolutely.
So you have that there already?
Yes.
And do a lot of people take advantage of that?
We get a lot of inquiries about that, and some people do, but a lot of people have grand ideas, more so than following through.
And do you find that you have a lot of designs that, can you design but not produce, or does a design have to be produced?
No, we don't put anything on our site that we can't produce.
Okay, all right. In the interest of time, let's wrap this one up, and thank you, Napoleon and Ilissa, for a very interesting chat about shoes and commerce. And Ilissa, you get the choice too, a bag or a t-shirt, or a pair of shoes. No, I'm just kidding. A bag or a t-shirt. A bag, okay. I knew the ladies would go for the bags. Okay. Great. There you go. Thank you. Good luck. Okay. You want your phone, Edith? Yep. Okay. Okay, next. Switching to robotics. Sham, the co-founder of Insight Robotics, is going to be grilled by Benjamin Joffe. Welcome back to the stage, Benjamin.
All right, so Zach asked for more robots, so we got more robots.
Yeah.
Right.
So probably not many people are familiar with your company, so if you could maybe start by the quick introduction, what is it you're doing and what your robots are doing, it would be great.
Actually, our company is called Insight Robotics, and we manufacture, design robots that help to monitor critical infrastructure and also for key resources, where key resources will include clean water, trees, forests, also all sorts of things that will affect our daily life if being endangered or damaged. Yeah.
Okay, so you create robots that basically monitor large infrastructures, and I understand that the first series of robots you actually started to sell are monitoring forests.
Yes. Yeah, and actually one of our products is our forestry wildfire detection robot. And the wildfire detection robot is actually a unmanned watchtower where we actually replace the forest guards who find forest fire in the forest 24 hours a day. It's because the forestry protection job, the job nature is too boring for the young people. So the officers are aging and retiring, and then the young people are not willing to go onto the forest and look at the forest for a year and wait for wildfire to happen and make a call. So these kind of things are too boring for young people, so we built robots to replace the job.
Okay, so basically your robots are replacing like forest watchmen who especially care for forest fires.
Yeah.
And so maybe it would be good to explain a bit more how it works, because probably in the mind of many people, a robot is something that kind of moves around, has like a couple of arms, looks somewhat humanoid. But Zach also mentioned that a Makible is also a robot. So what does your robot look like? So
actually,
it's a watchtower, right?
Our robot looks like an ordinary CCTV camera. but it sits on top of the watchtowers that originally are built for the watchman who lives in the forest. And now the watchman just leaves the tower, and then we put the robot there. It will scan the forest area 360 degrees, 24 hours a day. Even when there is a heavy fog or heavy haze, especially in China, we can see through the fog, see through the haze, and find out the fire inside the forest.
Okay, so your robot is like the tireless, perfect eyesight watchman.
Yeah.
And he can see through the fog because mostly you're looking at basically temperature of the forest, demographic.
Actually, the robot itself scans for the heat signature for anything inside the forest. And the effective range is around 5 kilometers in radius. So each of the robot can cover an area of 78 kilometers square. So to visualize it is that the whole Hong Kong area will need around 15 robots to cover the whole Hong Kong area.
So you can spot with those robots a fire as small as like 2 meters?
Yeah, for our robots, for our design specification, we designed that our robot must find any tree on fire within the scan radius. So the minimum fire size will be 2 meters times 1 meter. That means one tree is on fire.
Okay. Okay, so and the robotic part is not just the camera on the infrared detection, but it's all the system that's behind it that's basically recognizing what's a fire, what's worth like acting on, because you mentioned that you have already sold a number of those robots in China.
Yeah.
So how does this work, and how many fires are those guys finding?
Actually, we sold. We start to sell our product in Q4 2013. And then until now, we sold around 50 robots in China. And for one example of how serious the forest fire problem is that we have a statistics in the Jinan city, which is in Shandong province. The system reported over 50 incidents of wildfire in the city in each day. So actually, they're real fires and not false alarms.
Okay. Like off stage, we're discussing about the origin of those fires, and you say it's like people burning random rubbish to just avoid paying fees, disposing of things.
Actually, around 98% of the wildfire is being set up by human. And most of the wildfire in China are set up by farmers who want to escape from the garbage collection fees, and they put all the rubbish in the forest and burn it and then go away. So it's a pretty high chance that they will get a big forest fire. So what our robots are working for the local government is to find out these small fire incidents set up by human, and then they will sue those guys and probably will scare other farmers will not follow the same way.
It might sound kind of incidental, but you mentioned also earlier when we were discussing that actually forest fires are a big contributor to carbon emission, global warming. Can you tell more about that?
Actually, according to the research from NASA and the World Bank, actually 30% of the carbon emission every year is contributed by wildfire. So in the whole world, 30% of our carbon emission is contributing to the global warming issue, all sorts of air pollution issues, and also some acid rains, all sorts of environmental problems relates with the global warming. And if we can stop the fire when it's still small, we can cut a lot of carbon emissions.
Okay. Regarding that, so I understand your company came out of a university project that you had a lot of difficulties financing it because you went through the financial crisis and you lost backers to the project, and basically you had to figure out how to create a business. And you had this technology of like sensing and this like intelligent network that can not only like detect things but generate alerts and analyze the signature. So what are the next steps for you? Because, okay, you're detecting a fire, the fire department receiving alerts, so they know where the fire is, they see it on a map, they can go and act on it. But you were mentioning that maybe you have some other robots in the plans.
Yeah, actually we are building, the next step to the firing the alert is to put out the fire. And we are developing a drone, which is an automatic helicopter that can carry a fire distinguishing grenade. And when our system, terrestrial system, find out where the fire is, the UAV will take off and fly to the scene and put out a small fire.
Will it sacrifice itself in the fire?
It should not, because it's pretty expensive. Yeah. So originally, we cannot do this because whenever we find out where the fire is already very big. And the payload, being able to be carried by a drone is very small. So it do not have the capability to put out the fire. But with our grounded robots, we find out the fire when it is very small. When there is one tree is on fire, our drones can put it out.
Okay, and the method to extinguish it, so I was imagining kind of old school, putting tons of water, but you're saying that actually one way to put out fires is just throw a grenade at it that's made for that, and that just like removes all the oxygen and kills the fire.
Yeah, and the damage to the forest will be pretty small compared with throwing some chemical fire distinguishing materials into the forest. Because most of the forest fire now are being treated with foam and water, and chemical foams will cause long-term damage to the soil. So it is not good for the recovery of the forest after the fire.
So you just blow up one tree and then the fire is gone. Basically.
Yeah, and the damage is restricted to a few trees. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have more time? Or
well, it certainly sounds innovative and very innovative use as well. Any comments from our experts on strategy or his technology? What is he doing right? What is he doing wrong?
I just have a couple questions. I think what you're doing is so cool. Does it actually look like a Wall-E with no arm?
Yes.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Okay.
It looks like a Wall-E because it has two cameras. One is the thermal imaging camera, and one is infrared camera.
That's so awesome.
Visible light camera. So it looks like a Wall-E.
Yeah. So I have two more serious questions. One is, so who usually actually make the decision to buy this, and what's the price point for each of the robots?
Actually, the local forestry department is the key decision maker. And we have been working with the Chinese forestry for a long period of time. We started a research 3 years ago with them to develop the robot. Because the first time we met the forestry people, we just bring them our PowerPoint. And we tell them we may have a solution that can help you to find out the forest fires. So we build up trust during the experiments with them, and we help them to write technical papers so that they can get very good reputation in the forestry industry.
How much is it?
We are selling at $50K US for each robot, and if they have a citywide implementation, there should be some discount. But actually, it's similar price. Yeah.
Mike.
Doesn't have to be a question. It could be a comment about what you think.
Directional. No, it's just yeah. That's what I was trying to figure out, is that the direction. What's next step? And you mentioned a little bit about that. And then once you get into drones and getting into dropping things from the sky, I would imagine the regulatory and the safety issue becomes of paramount importance on that scale. And then you'll probably have to go through this. It's no longer just the Department of Forestry, but many government departments, right?
Yes, and that's why we have the product launch date to be 2016. And in these few years, we are working with the flight regulation departments in China, so that we can make sure the drones will not fall into bad people's hands, and make sure it won't fly if it does not have the authorization. And that's why we are working with the Polytechnic University in Hong Kong, and we got some funding from the Hong Kong government, from the Innovative Technology Fund, to develop a autopilot controller that is safe enough to fit the, to make sure our robots can meet the regulations set by the FAA, which will be released in 2015 for the drones, regulation of drones. Because in 2015, FAA is going to merge the usage of drones into the civil aviation system. So our UAVs are not those things you can see online on YouTube with quad rotors flying all around into the city and crashing, sort of like that. Our system cannot crash in any circumstances, or else it will cause another forest fire. So we must be very safe in that.
Wow. Okay, on that note, Rex and Benjamin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's give them a round of applause. And Rex, I think I'm going to give you a T-shirt as a sign of encouragement toward your dreams. Of,
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. You can model it at any time. So, next, I'd like to welcome to the stage, moving back into the 3D printing space, Jonathan Buford, the founder of Makible. He's going to be interviewed by Casey Law, the co-founder of Startups Hong Kong. Casey and Jonathan, please come up. Where's Casey? Okay. It's a familiar crowd here. Okay.
So, John, we don't have much time, so we're going to have to go through this really quickly. So, you came, you're from the States?
Right.
And you came to Hong Kong about 15 years ago?
Yep.
You're from the toy business, is that correct? You came here to make toys? How did you go from toy business into 3D printing?
Oh boy, that's like an
it's
8-year...
It's a huge jump, right?
Yeah. So somewhere along the way, I did the first crowdfunded adult toy. And,
what?
Yeah, in 2005.
What was that called?
It's called the Happy Kitty.
Happy Kitty. Can I still buy that online?
I don't think you can.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, so did crowdfunding back in 2005. I got into invention licensing, and that kind of led up to the crisis, 2008. I was doing consulting and invention licensing within consumer products and toys. And so at that point, basically everything fell apart within the retail industry. So that gave me great insight into inventions and how not to make money from inventions and other things. And then I got into software startups at that point, which is where we started StartupsHK. So.
And so you're a startup entrepreneur, serial guy. You came up with a software startup, and then you moved into the hardware. So what, as we know, John started the first co-workspace in Hong Kong, but how did that kind of evolve into what would turn into Makible?
Well, so BootHK was the first co-workspace in Hong Kong. We started that in 2010. I actually pitched the concept at the first Startup Saturday, which was over in Cyberport 3. And so at that point, I was kind of on a rebound from my software startup. It was a project management system that I ended up having to bury due to founder issues and the fact that we just weren't getting any traction, and I was lonely. And
you were lonely?
Well,
okay.
You know,
right.
As a founder always
we'll
is,
talk about that later,
right?
Yes.
No, but so I started BootHK in 2010, and at that point, I started looking at what's going to be next. And Makible kind of came out of the invention licensing consumer product space. Kickstarter was just starting to get traction at that point. And we saw that already there were many people that would get things funded, but then not successfully deliver. And so we had a grandiose plan for doing a crowdfunding site that would connect with the manufacturing backend. With, of course, you would need to do prototyping and all these things kind of wrapped up into it. And so over the last 3 years, we launched the crowdfunding site. We successfully did a $100,000 US campaign on it for the Makibox, which is the world's cheapest 3D printer.
How much is cheap?
$200.
US?
US.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we did that, and then we figured out that actually we don't want to own the crowdfunding site. So we switched over to just focus on the Makiboxing and getting that out the door. And just like what Zach said, we probably came across every possible difficulty you could with manufacturing it because we did the manufacturing here ourselves. So at this point, we're able to do about 800 Makiboxes a month, shipping out of our Kuaihing.
When you mean here, you mean
in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong,
yeah,
not China.
We've got 3,000 square foot of industrial space in Kuaihing.
Have you talked to the girl that does the shoes?
No. So what we learned from that, which just like most crowdfunding campaigns, it took longer than we wanted. What we learned from that was all about the logistics. We're shipping to 60 to 80 different countries globally right now. So we learned a lot from that side about doing the manufacturing in-house, about arranging suppliers, because we're connecting suppliers from China to here with the goal of doing the manufacturing in-house here for now. The advantage of doing it here, China is not cheap anymore. Anybody that's been in the manufacturing market, just the renminbi's gone up 50% over the last 5 years. Factory workers are getting paid a lot more. And all this is good in a lot of ways, but for us, it means that things are more expensive, but you still have the same QC problems, everything that you've had for forever. So what we're seeing is the next stage of our company is Ninja Fab. And so it's adaptive manufacturing. So what we're doing is we're taking what we learned from doing the Makibox, shipping and doing all the assembly, we're packaging that up into a self-contained little factory that it's like a McDonald's, right? It's something we could duplicate globally for maybe $1 million for each location. So the first stage of that is to prototype out that space that we would then be able to duplicate globally.
All right, so walk me through this and walk this through the panel here and the audience. So what I want to make a toy. Right. I want to make a Captain America action figure. So I come to you, and then how does that work from there?
Well, at that point, I would have to say, do you actually own Captain America rights?
All right,
but
I paid Marvel for the rights.
So what we're looking at doing is trying to make manufacturing more accessible. So for somebody like you, we would probably say, okay, what can you do? You're a designer, so you can probably do some good sketches, but maybe you don't have the 3D modeling, or maybe you do have the 3D modeling, but you don't have the, how do I make it manufacturable? And then we would walk through, as effectively on the consultant side, walk through with our customer, okay, what do you need to do to get to where you need to be in the market? Do you need to make 100 pieces, 500 pieces, 1,000 pieces? Because each of these options has a different way to come into market, and we might use different tools. So for lower volume, we might use 3D printers. For medium size, we might use in-house injection molding or something like that. For really big volume, we may do a smaller production run in-house and then spin it out into a larger factory. But because we've already gone through the pain of getting it up and running, it's a lot smoother to transfer it into the larger factory. So it kind of depends on each project. But that's the point, is kind of providing a system for manufacturing, but then also backing it up with expertise that, because what we're seeing, I know personally a lot of the crowdfunding companies, they wind up compromising on specific features, or they have a particular hurdle that if we can have that staff that can kind of fit in where they have problems, then potentially we can get to market much quicker, but also save money. So, and then in the long term, the obvious thing is if we've got a global network, basically you don't have to ship stuff halfway around the world. You can, you're basically gaining a month or 2 months of just shipping time, not to send stuff halfway around the world. So there's a lot of, we're already talking with retailers in terms of retailers are interested in that exact thing. So, the scope of this is really quite big, but we're starting with the little guys.
So what kind of market are you looking at? Are you looking at the US market? Are you looking at, are you going to cut China out of a lot of this manufacturing in the future?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily cutting anybody out. I think we're servicing a niche that, it's a big niche, but it's it's a global niche. We'll start with setting up here because this is where it's good to prototype. And then the obvious expansion, the first places would be US and Europe.
All right. Do you have any questions, or do I ask them? Comments, sorry, comments.
Well, maybe I'll start with a quick comment. So sounds like with Makible, you've gone through all of these evolutions and pivots. What drove that for you? Was it a business need, or was it circumstance, or just you were bored of it, or what was it?
Well, I think it was more refining the vision, because we started out, let's do crowdfunding all the way to get it to the customer. And I think pretty much every year we said, okay, it makes more sense not to own the crowdfunding site. It makes more sense to be a back end for that. And then going through fulfilling the Makibox orders got us more in tune with our first set of customers. And so I started meeting more of these guys along that route. And so I saw that they all had the same pain that I was going through. But me being so I came from toys and consumer products, I know that retailers have the same problem. It's just, it's not something that you can start with. You need to kind of work up to that point.
Yeah, knows John for a long time, so that's why he knows about the pivots. To new people, this looks like a brand new, amazing idea, fresh out of the gate.
So are you still going to sell a Makibox?
I think we're...
Or Happy Kitty, for that question matter.
I think we're evaluating exactly what we're going to do with the Makibox as a brand and also as a product. One thing, so we deliberately pushed that price point. We pushed it to be the cheapest in the world. And what we're finding is the group of people that we made it for, the makers and the hobbyists that have a little bit of aptitude, they're definitely happy with it. But then when it gets into consumer hands, then people want an out-of-the-box experience, and that's not what we designed it for. And so we're having to go back and look at how do we position this carefully so that we can sell it without having too much possible frustration from the end customer. So maybe looking at more of an educational application, or we're going to kind of step back from it a bit and look at how we need to do it to make it worthwhile.
So you don't really want to be a B2C business?
No, I definitely want to get purely B2B. Like that's my focus for sure.
So you'd rather sell something for $1 million each. One of the things that maybe I can quickly share that could be interesting is when you, and we've done this in some of our other businesses, when something is no longer core to what you do, but still a lot of intellectual property or good value, you could always consider basically an asset sale, right? To basically other companies that might like this expertise or technology. And in this case, you're probably not too fussed about valuation because you're going to get a good price for it, and it can help fund your other project.
Yep, that's exactly what we want to. We want to kind of. While we're wrapping up the first set of production, we're going to get into like a nice stable position, and then we can step back and kind of look at, okay, what is the right choice for it, and spinning it off or selling it would make sense.
Okay. Any further comments? If not, you get your choice again as a sign of encouragement. The Silicon Dragon bag or the...
Please, if I could please have a bag, I would appreciate it.
A bag? Okay, by the way, these are the bags, which are pretty nice, I think, particularly since yours truly designed them. But I'm not going to follow the milk and honey shoes lady. Elissa, okay. Yes, a bag. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give Casey and Jonathan a round of applause and welcome our last tech chat, which is in the biomedical space. And I'd like to welcome Patrick Leung, co-founder of eNano Health, and Lawrence Morgan of Nest Investments to the stage.
It's okay. We don't take offense at being left out. We might not be in the health tech space blowing up trees with the Terminator robots, but
Yeah, that's a kind of a hard act to follow.
it
right?
is a bit difficult, so I'm thankful there's one in between. So just in terms of avoiding misrepresentation, I represent Nest Investments. It wasn't, unfortunately, the same Nest that was bought out for 3.2 billion by Google. Joined with Patrick Leung, Chief Scientist at eNano, rocking the look. Your business in a nutshell, you've developed a non-invasive device for measuring blood glucose levels, mainly for diabetics, I'm assuming. Is there a personal history there? Why the call to action for blood glucose testing?
Yeah, we start looking at actually when we start looking at the software first, when you're doing the MRI, CT, and it looks like it's so expensive, then probably nobody can afford it. So we look at, can we do another simple device? And we look at, one of the things we are looking at is nanotechnology based, which is very similar to a semiconductor. And if you get a large volume of business, your cost drop down dramatically. And we look like maybe we have a chance. So we have concentrated actually mostly on the saliva base. The problem is the blood is so complicated and people don't like it. So, but the saliva is easy. And the patient compliance is a major issue in today's healthcare. They just don't test it. So we come up with a simple solution. The first one we just do it, it's just measuring the glucose from your saliva. So instead of drawing a blood, you spit on it, a little device, and it seems to be working. So we're going to ship this product first, just measuring a glucose level. And if your glucose is high, they're pretty linear, that means we're in good shape. We cannot do the type 1 diabetic, which is about 5% to 10% of the people. But we're mostly looking at the type 2 diabetic patients, which is about 90%, and it's growing ridiculous high. See, in China, it's about 10%. Even in Hong Kong, it's about 10% now. And if you're over 65, it's 25%. So we think this might be a solution. And it's simple, inexpensive, and we do use some of the telephone technology right now, iPhone, iPad, that kind of
thing. So just to back up a bit, just tell us a bit about the classic diabetic consumer of your product. Right now, they're testing through drawing blood. What frequency do they have to do that with? Why are they not bothering to do it?
Yeah, first, it's probably painful. That's a major thing. And that's stopped a lot of people doing it. And technically, you're supposed to test 7 times a day, but nobody's going to do it, right? So now you end up not testing it, most of the people, except you're really in bad shape, like type 1 diabetic. But type 2, the people just don't do it. And you don't feel anything. So it seems to be okay, but sooner or later you get in big trouble everywhere. Your leg, your heart, your kidney, your brain, your eyes, everything. So that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, just for the audience, I've been obviously doing a bit of research about it. The absolute tragedy of diabetes is leading to heart arrests and strokes and amputations, and so the effects are serious. This is definitely a very good cause. The WHO, the World Health Organization, just labeled it an epidemic, especially in China and with the growing population of obesity. So tell us a bit about the kind of the current treatment in terms of, you're up against some really big players. You've got Roche, you've got kind of Novartis, Abbott, all these people are producing testers. How can you muscle in on this multi-billion-dollar market? Isn't it a $50 billion medication market right now? How are you going to do it?
Yeah, this is one of the major market actually from a diagnostics point of view. It's about 80%, maybe 50, at least 50% the total market. So we try to do it this because it's easy. People understand it, so we don't have to educate people. So we start this one first. But our major market was looking for other things like cardiac cancer and everything else under the sun. But this is easy for education. It's easy to introduce, and maybe the big guys don't touch you because I'm using a saliva, nobody trusts it. We're the first one, and mostly the study is coming from India, of all the places. And if you look at the US, 0 paper coming out. So that means they're not paying attention to these problems, So we think there might be a market. And we did a lot of study, with the people, since they like it. We did a very simple study in a science park where about 100 people just walking through and said, do you want to test? And 100 people they did it. And it was surprisingly, you assume science park is similar to cyberports, young people and young engineers. They shouldn't have this problem. And we found out about 7 people out of 100 has high glucose. That was kind of scary, even as science park. So this might be a problem, and we do find similar statistics everywhere.
People who just haven't been diagnosed.
Yeah, they just missed. They missed because they think they're young. They don't have this problem, but because the diet we have, anything can happen now.
So just to kind of go back to the competition, all of the competition right now are doing blood testing as their device. Nobody is doing this saliva testing, or is there a direct competitor out there?
Not yet. Yeah, I think we might be, because we look at the FDA approved. FDA is the US approval agency, and there's nothing in there. The only one they use for saliva is HIV. That's all they have. And the reason they use HIV is they think because people don't test it. So even they're not as accurate, they say, why not, right? You test it, you help people, so they let them go. Not because they're more accurate than the blood, but because they think if people test it, they find it's better. So we think we have the same strategy. If they test glucose, they might be better, might not be as accurate, but it doesn't really matter that much.
And tell us a bit about why it doesn't matter. I mean, you're saying, a lot of the doctors don't like your idea. They don't like your invention. They don't, because it's not as accurate. Tell us why that doesn't matter versus the blood testing.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because we actually, even doctors never look at the finger pricking number. They don't trust that one anyway. So they draw the blood and they measure a thing called hemoglobin A1C. It's about 3 months of average of your blood glucose. So if you look at that number, and you compare the saliva and compare to the blood, it's almost the same. So that means, and if you measure it, you just, it just be better maybe. Just monitor your health, and people just pay attention to the food, eat, exercise a little bit better, and you improve your health anyway. So the measurement is really not important for the accuracy as much as they think. So that's actually one experiment they did at Kaiser in US. They sent half the people testing it, half the people don't do any testing. The people who do the testing, even they don't look at the numbers, they improve their health dramatically. So that's why, okay, good enough. This is a good test, and we have to be that accurate as a consumer product.
And so the saliva testing, I mean, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, there was a big article about Google supposedly developing contact lenses to measure blood glucose through the tears or something. Why did you settle on saliva? Why is that the best one?
Yeah, if you look at anything coming from your body, it's not much actually. The best one is the blood, of course, but it's just hard to do it, except you pick your fingers or you do anything, you hurt your finger. You also can have an infection. Any bacteria comes into the little cut, you're in trouble. And you go to a third world country, you just don't want to do it. So what do, right? Okay, now you can use the tears, but it's very difficult to get it. It's small, and it's very sensitive. Your eyes is very sensitive. You touch a little bit, your numbers are out of whack. So what else do? You can do a urine. I don't like it, right? And it's not much. So now we end up, okay, saliva is the best. You just let it kiss. You figure it out. So it's not that bad.
Okay, so you're going to beat the Google guys.
Yep.
Tell me a bit about the business. I mean, is the product ready? Is it ready to ship? What kind of stage are you at?
We are ready to ship, but we do have to get the approval, just for technical reasons, because FDA are really keen on this kind of thing. They look at you, and you have to claim exactly what you say you can claim. And we're going through this process. It will take 3 to 6 months, and the European market is much simpler. They just put in the paperwork, you'll be okay. China, we do have to do a little more work because this is the first one on the market, so we need a little bit more tests, but it should be okay, I think our number. India, we're okay. They don't need any tests particularly. Hong Kong, we don't need any, so we'll be okay.
Wow, it sounds like you've got an ambition to take over the world here. Where are you going to launch first? Are you going to launch everywhere first? Or?
Yeah, we do. We have to find partners, of course, but we have people who would be interested in working with us, like the WHO. Actually, there are 4 people coming in to see our product at Geneva, and they are really interested in this kind of technology, and even Red Cross is interested in this because they think you can push this thing to any place in the world, and you might help, solve some of the problems.
Healthcare tech, obviously very hot right now. have you been approached? You know, is this a passion project? Is this something you're going to sell out to one of the big pharmaceuticals? What's the plan?
No, probably not. I'm real sticky on the thing we would like to do, and we believe this, we can do something much better. Although we're little guys here, but we think we understand the thing, we understand the problem. We see a lot of patients. We think we can benefit. They can benefit a lot, and maybe we can change the way people do things. So you just try to help yourself rather than have the medicine help you.
Fascinating. Any comments or
Oh,
questions? Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm one of the victims. I'm diabetic. So I'm listening to you in intent and I'm looking through the prompts and all that. But I'm just curious about the distribution. How would you do this distribution of the device itself?
We're looking for partners because each country is different, right?
Right.
Because they have their approval problem, they have also the language problem, the distribution problem.
No, so you know, like in all the glucose testers, right? You have the disposables, which is the strip and the needle, and then you have the actual device, kind of like the printer and the ink, right?
Right.
So do you have that as well?
No, and our first version is actually very simple. It's just a piece like this. It's just a piece of paper inside. You split the little thing in, to a little hole in there, and turn color. And we use a cell phone to take a picture of this thing. So we capture the picture and we calculate the number and we store in the database on the internet.
Oh, so the smartphone app compares the color with a chart that
Right.
tells you the
so
actual.
we know
A bit
exactly
like
everything.
litmus paper or something.
It's just like litmus paper, high school chemistry.
So maybe a question then. If your technology becomes widely adopted, does someone go out of business in terms of the question of the sort of printer and ink part? Because in other words, do you have a lot of enemies in trying to distribute the business, to grow the business?
I'm sure if it's become okay, the technology turns to be okay, I'm sure people would like to copy it too, right?
And the challenges then, how have you thought about the challenges? You mentioned that doctors don't seem to like saliva. But would they be their ultimate customer, or?
They will be, but they need data. That's what they're a little bit different. You understand that they're very conservative people. So we understand that we've been working with doctors for a long, long time. And we wrote software for the doctors, so we understand the mentality. All they need is just data, and the data coming out actually are not bad at all. The problem is we don't have data from the big US university and that thing, and they don't think they are okay. But what we're doing is we line up other people to do the clinical test, because it's so simple. Put a saliva test is nothing actually. It's not like drug, clinical trial. So relatively easy. So we just need more data to substantiate, and we need a more test case. How can we use this thing? Actually, it's a little bit more. We did some experiments, very simple. You drink a can of Coca-Cola. What happened to your glucose? Normal people go up 100%. You can see it. So you can eat the different food, and you can test it again.
How much is this?
We're looking at $1 per test, but we also have another version. We throw away. We keep the plastic. We throw away the piece of paper. It's about 30 cents US per test, and the software is free.
When it comes to people's health, a lot of people have issues on the business side of, you're profiting off of people's illnesses.
Yep.
So how are you thinking about the revenue and the business side of things, and do you expect any pushback on that?
I'm sure there will be, right? Yeah, but we have to believe, ourselves, right? This is good for them, and with the price point, I don't think it's a major problem. Yeah.
You're undercutting them in price and the competition, really, aren't you?
No, because by nature, this is not expensive to build, right? And we don't need that high profit margin, at least not for this product.
So maybe just a comment here. I'm not from the healthcare industry, so I have no idea. I'm generally in the consumer space. But usually what we see is when we need to disrupt an industry, then we have to find a way to get there without working through them somehow, because they have many agents in the middle that block you.
Right.
But I'm thinking of things whether it's like a 23andMe approach or sort of a consumer website approach where it could actually be almost fun, right? So it's drink a can of Coke or compare results. Since the cost is so low,
right,
you basically can ship these sort of stripes and just measure them and make a game out of it, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If with that kind of cost, maybe if it goes viral, then you might have your consumer base. Because you have a very low cost base.
Yeah.
My only concern, again, not knowing much about the healthcare industry, is we were, however, in the B2B space, and it was in the enterprise space. And the difficulty we had was to work through all the official channels. And if we didn't have any official channels that were signing up with us to resell our product at the time, then essentially we couldn't sell. That's the only thing that I might worry for you.
Yeah.
Okay, we selected these tech entrepreneurs who come from various sectors to showcase the kinds of technologies that are happening here in Hong Kong. All of these entrepreneurs are based here in Hong Kong, and we also selected them because we felt that they had good potential to become Silicon Dragon-like entrepreneurs. These would be like the mainland China's entrepreneurs, the Renrens, the Baidus, the Alibabas, the Tencents, which Hong Kong is still lacking, but shows promise. And I think I'd like to ask the audience what their view is, and we could do this by a show of hands. What do you think Hong Kong's prospects are of taking the Asia IT crown and competing globally? How many people think that Hong Kong can do that within the next 2 years? Not very many. Wow, 5 years? 10 years? Okay. How many people think that it will never? Okay. Well, it's pretty mixed, actually. But I do think that these entrepreneurs do make a case for the strong kinds of innovations and the diverse kind of innovations that are happening right here in Hong Kong. And I think with all the startup energy and all the accelerators and incubators that are here in this market now, and the new venture funds and angel funds that are emerging, again, that I think it does have good prospects over the next couple of years. But let's give our Tech Chat entrepreneurs a round of applause and our commentators a round of applause. I should add, too, that if you are interested in being on stage and being one of these Tech Chat entrepreneurs, please check out the application sheet that's in your conference package. And see me if you have any questions afterwards. And before I forget, yes, Patrick.
Do I have a choice?
Yeah, I don't know if there's still a choice here, but well, how about a T-shirt?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. And why don't you show how great it is? You can take it out of the package. Yep, we could do a little stretch break here too while he's doing that. How many people want to stretch break? How many people want to do yoga or calisthenics or jog around the cyberport? But don't go away too far because we're going to move right into our VC Dealmaker panel. Okay, I think it's pretty nice, right? Okay, thank you very much for staying with us so far. And we'll just take a quick break here as our VC Dealmakers come up to the stage and get settled.